get this. Okay, now we're back in action. So give me 1 second. Share. All right. Yep, it's Friday. Okay, again, people on Zoom, can you see the contract form? Cancellation of listing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, so we got a lot of information of what the purpose of this cancellation, right? The cancellation of listing is what it is. It's an opportunity for the seller or the agent to facilitate a cancellation of a specific contract, which is the listing agreement. Okay. So it explains many components to this, right? The cancellation occurs of many factors, right? Change of mind, uh, dissatisfied. Sometimes agents and sellers just don't see eye to eye, and ultimately they wanna cancel. Um, Maybe an unexpected situation happened, and it's occurred where one of the sellers passes away or has health issues or has to leave an emergency, right? So there's many variables that ultimately a cancellation is needed. Okay. Also, maybe the market has changed, right? Where at this price here, you have the property listed and nothing happens. There's no buyers, right? Or maybe the seller's unrealistic, right, of their purchase, excuse me, of the listing price, and you went with the motion in hopes that a buyer would ultimately buy this and go into escrow, but that doesn't happen because the realistic part of it is you're probably a little too high, and you'll see a lot of expires, right, come on the market, right? So in essence, that's when we see either a expired or a cancellation. Sometimes the agent unfortunately decides to transfer and go to another brokerage, okay? And they're trying to navigate a transfer of the listing to their new brokerage. And therefore, a cancellation of listing may be the avenue to go, okay? But I also want to emphasize the importance that this is a binding agreement, okay? And a cancellation must be done properly to protect all parties, okay? In essence, there is no provision on the listing agreement that the seller says, hey, I changed my mind. I decided I don't want to sell the property. Therefore, I want to cancel. There's nothing on the listing agreement that says any specifics to those terms. Nothing. Okay. It has to be mutually agreed upon by both the seller and also the listing agent. Okay. Now, to me personally, this document is so confusing. But I want to put some perspective into it so you understand how to protect you and your commission. Because at the end of the day, let's just be real, okay? And all of you on the call are one, licensed agents, but you're also consumers. And you buy and sell real estate too. I know I have. Most of you own your property or an investment, right? So you may be on the other side of the arena, right? And now you are a principal in a transaction, right? So how do you protect the process, right? And again, to me, this document's a little confusing. I'll be quite honest with you. And I get so many calls, so many emails, so many text messages regarding how to properly navigate this, right? And there's times that I just scratch my head and it's like, okay, I got to double check. And I already know it, but I still have to double check because there's language in here that it's uncertain. Okay. Most of the information on here is pretty self-explanatory, meaning, you can read it, you understand what you need to add, right? On the very top here, that's where you're going to put the brokerage. Okay. And if you ever need to know, you can always go to this little section here and then it'll tell you listing broker's firm name if you don't know what to add. Okay, so I'm going to put, okay, as an example, that's the brokerage that you are part of. Okay, that's what it says. Keller Williams, broker, has entered into a written residential listing agreement, if check, if it's a lease, or if it's any other, right? So it emphasizes that we have entered. You're not using this form if you don't have a listing agreement. Just because the seller's talking to you and they say, you know what, I don't think I want to list my property, you're not going to send a cancellation of listing. There was never a listing agreement in the first place. Does that make sense? You only utilize this when you have a written listing agreement signed and executed by the sellers, and now you're marketing or promoting it or whatever to sell the property. Okay. The next section talks about the date. And the reason I'm going to go deep into this is because it's a one pager. It's a one simple page. But guess what? Agents are still confused. Okay. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad people on Zoom are taking advantage of this class because I think it's important to understand how to protect yourself. Because I hate to say this, the only reason sometimes sellers decide to cancel is why? Because they think on the other side is greener and that another agent can get them what they want. Or maybe they're trying to do a deal behind the agent with a buyer. And they're trying to avoid and paying you a commission. Let's be real, okay? But I also want you to be smart about it and not fall in a trap. Does that make sense? Because there's language in here that says that if you check a certain box, guess what? Seller doesn't owe you compensation. That's simple. So we're going to try to avoid that. Now, if it gets a little wonky, and sometimes it does, because I'm telling you from personal experience, doing this for a very long time, listening to a lot of agents deal with cancellations, it's never a pleasant conversation. Never pleasant, right? The reason is someone is unsatisfied, usually, you know? But there is a certain percentage that, yeah, unfortunately, the deal needs to cancel because of circumstances, and I get it. But I want you to also have two hats and be mindful that you are looking and trying to protect your best interests as well. Because remember, you put in time, you put in energy, you put in the effort, you're putting marketing, you're doing anything and everything to do what? Sell the property. And if the seller then says, oh, I decide that I don't want to pursue this anymore, I want to cancel, you're not paid anything. Okay. So far, we good? Not here to scare anyone. Okay. That's the last of what I'm trying to do. But I want to educate you. And I want to make sure that you're protected too, because again, there's nothing on the listing agreement that says that the seller can cancel. And even if they bark, pardon my language, even if they bark and threaten you to call DRE, and I get those calls all the time. I just got one from an investigator from the Department of Real Estate. Call me directly. DRE called me about a cancellation. And guess what I did? I go based on the contract. Okay. And there was really not much that the investor can really do because, again, if you're not doing anything unethical with bad intentions, doing some type of fraud, then you're good. Okay, we're all trying to make a living, right? We're trying to sell. We're trying to get paid for services rendered, right? But in essence, sometimes deals fall apart. Well, listings also fall apart too. So I want to properly educate you. The date. That is the date that you secure the listing. Okay. If it was a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, you're going to put the date of the listing agreement. Okay. Not today, but the listing agreement. Okay. So I'm going to say that, let's go back to December. I'm going to use the 15th as, oops, not the 25th. My apologies. The 15th, here it is. All right, so let's say that we executed the listing on December 15th of 2024. That's when we got the listing, okay? And then with,
And that date would be an agreement.
yeah, you just have to look at the listing agreement, correct? Okay, with, and if you don't know, go here, name of the principal. Who's the principal? Not the school principal, ladies and gentlemen, okay? I feel like being a jokester today, so I apologize to people on Zoom today. And I think it was Fred this morning. He just had me going this morning, so I think I just got a little bit of a Fred this morning that I just feel like being a comedian. So I apologize to anyone on Zoom. Okay, it's Friday. Yes, 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 it's Friday. But that goes as the sellers. Okay. Okay, just as an example, right? Obviously, just for the sake of class today, is the sellers. Okay, that's going to be your principal. Those are the ones that need to sign off and agree to the terms of this, right? Because remember, as I said earlier, there's nothing that says on the contract that the seller can just cancel. Okay. And you and the brokerage have leverage. You definitely have leverage. Okay. Just because the seller threatens to call the Department of Real Estate, threatens to call an attorney on you, go for it. Go for it. Please do. And I've had those difficult conversations with sellers, with attorneys. Okay. And they'll find every avenue. And the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to get off the hook from paying you commission because, again, they think it's greener on the other side. Some little birdie is probably telling them, hey, I can get you top dollars, net you the most. I'll reduce my commission. Come work for me. I'm just saying. Okay. And that can happen. So asking the right questions. If a seller says to you, I want to cancel, what should your response be? That's right. Why? Tell me. Tell me more. Tell me the reason you want to cancel. I want to know the reason behind the seller's intention that they want to cancel. Okay? Because you also have a little bit of power, right? You can say, I'm okay canceling because maybe the seller has just driven you up the wall and you're just fed up. And it happens. And I get it. I've been in circumstances where I even tell the listing agent, I says, look, I've been so involved in this that I'm going to make an executive decision and I'm going to do a couple options here. Okay. Which, as the broker, I have options. Option one is to cancel it out because the agent does not have the authority to cancel it off the MLS. You don't. You can activate it. You can put it as coming soon. You can put it active under contract. You can put it pending. You can also withdraw on it, but you cannot cancel the listing. Only the brokerage can. I got the power on that one. Okay. But when this happens, please bring us to a conversation so I can help because there's other ways that we can help you. Because if you are bumping heads with the seller, and sometimes you do, I can delegate it to someone else. Ooh, wow, could, yeah. I can get it to another agent that could close it out and pay you a referral instead of losing the opportunity and not getting paid compensation. So that's one option. Okay. That we just transfer it to another and I'll have a conversation with the seller says because they're just tired or fed up or who knows what the case may be. It can be many, many reasons for it, right? 1 second, hold that thought. Okay. It could be many reasons behind that, right? And sometimes to diffuse, de-escalate the situation, folks, right? I will have a conversation with the sellers and says, look, not a problem. Let me communicate with the agent and see what we can do to facilitate it. But if I can find another agent that can help you, would that be something you'll consider? Yeah, absolutely. So then I have the ability to transfer it to another agent that will help close it for you, and you still get paid compensation. Now, you're not going to get the whole enchilada, but you're going to get something because they're now involved. They're now responsible. They're in the risk if something goes sideways, they're putting their name on it, but they will pay you a referral where you can easily lose the listing and not get paid not 1 cent. You with me on this? What was your question? Yeah. Yeah, so part of what we do here is once we decide what direction we're going to go with this cancellation of listing, then ultimately once the seller signs, the broker signs, then we can cancel it on the MLS. No, no. Okay, you're like 3 steps ahead of me. Okay, that's where we're going to go into the different boxes, okay? So there's layers, and this is again why it's a little confusing. So I'm going to go through the steps here of which direction you should go, because there's language in here and provisions here that ultimately, even though we decide to cancel or not cancel, you may still be entitled to compensation. Yeah, but you got to understand how these contracts work. Okay. The next section goes into the home description, right? Which is subject property, the address. This is where you're going to put the property address. Okay. And again, I'm going to use Torrance just because that's my hub. This is where my office is at. So nothing against any other cities, guys, okay? For the Valley agents on this call. All right, so I'm using, the address Torrance here in California, right? Now let's go into the meats and potatoes of this cancellation, okay? And I want you to be very aware of the language in here, okay? It goes into, it says, broker and principal agree to cancel the listing and terminate their agency relationship, duties and responsibilities with and to each other subject to the terms and conditions specified below if checked. Okay. Now we're going to go into paragraph number 1, AB, and then paragraph number 2, ABC, and then 3, 4, and 5. Okay. 1A says this. A or B or both may be checked. Principal agrees to pay broker the amount of compensation specified in the listing. Yes. Let me repeat this one more time. Broker, excuse me, where am I at? Listing period specified in the listing or any extent. Wait, where did I lose? Oh, okay. And I have my glasses on. Can you believe that? Principal agrees to pay broker in the amount of compensation specified on the listing agreement, okay? So that's an indicator that whatever you had on the listing agreement, that's what it's referring to. Y'all with me? Okay. Now, me personally, I would always want to check 1A. Okay. Remember that. If you get anything from this class today, make sure that you check 1A. Okay. If prior to the end of the listing period, okay, what does that mean? Prior to the listing agreement, that means that if you have, bless you, if you have a 6-month listing agreement and then 4 months into it, the seller decides to cancel, right? Then you still may be entitled to compensation for the remainder of the 2 months if that seller decides to put it back. I don't care, okay? And here's just my thing. I can care less, okay? If they're going to go in a different direction, right? If they want to go with another agent, right? What I care is my job is just that if they sell the property to whoever they want to, I get paid. And by checking 1A, that's the layer of protection. Y'all with me? That if they do go behind you, to the side of you, in front of you, you may go after damages for compensation. That's simple. Within the time frame. Okay. Again, it says prior to the end of the listing period specified on the listing or any extensions, principal enters into a contract to sell, convey, lease, or otherwise transfer the property. It doesn't say about listing agent, doesn't say anything about a realtor. It just says if they go into contract. That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. Please understand. Because if the seller wants to sell it to their family members and avoid agent, that's an agreement. And if we find out, we have the right to go after compensation. You all with me on that? Okay, so when you think of cancellation of listings, what are you going to think? Yeah, 1A. Make sure
Don't
they
leave
put
on the
1A.
table.
What's that?
Don't leave any money on the table.
Yeah, no leave any money on the table, 100%. Okay. Now, it also has section 1B as in boy, right? Where it says or, okay? And that or, if checked, okay, which again, you can add that as well, or within calendar days after this cancellation of listing, or the listing period specified in the listing principal enters into contract to say convey, lease, or otherwise transfer the property to any person named below or that person related entity who after the commencing of the listing or prior to this cancellation physically entered and was shown the property by the broker or a cooperating broker, or two, submitted to seller a signed written offer to inquire, lease, exchange, or obtain an option of the property. Okay. So you can be very specific. Guard yourself, protect yourself. You can check one or you can check both. Always check 1A, but you can also put a stipulation, okay, that says that, hey, if this particular person comes back, it may be an entity, it may be an investor. Maybe you have a listing that is a fixer, a flip property, right? And something happens where the seller and one of the investors are talking behind and they're trying to work a deal to offset and not pay compensation. Again, it's very far and few and rare, but I also want you to have your guard up because there's a lot of people that are very sneaky, yeah, to say the least. And I want to make sure you're protected under the umbrella of the listing agreement, folks. Does that make sense? Okay. And if that's the case, then you can put here the names of the people. Okay. If someone submitted an offer, you want to make sure that you save all of the offers. Let's just say, theoretically speaking, right? You got a hot property and you got 5, 10 offers on it, right? You got them all via email, right? You want to make sure you list all of the names of those people, because if any of those people come back and buy within the time period or the extension, that provision on the listing agreement, you may still be entitled to compensation. Okay? And then C and D are just, defaulted questions. In the event of the transaction specified in A or B above, broker has no obligation to
Question.
present. Yes, Rosie.
Yeah, okay. On that section that you mentioned, when you are doing the listing, you don't have multiple offers at that time to put that information in there.
On what time?
Because you mentioned that to put whatever listings or multiple offers that you have. At the time of the listing agreement, you will not have that information.
Only if you check B, 1B, only if you check that. Okay?
You provide a list later on then.
No. So part of the cancellation or expiration of a listing, remember, if you go back to the listing agreement, Rosie, there's language in there. There's a clause that says a continuing, and I can't think of the verbiage, but it says something that after the cancellation or expiration of the listing, if you provide the seller with a list of all of these buyers who have either submitted, went into escrow, were shown the property, and you provide this listing to the seller, and these individuals come back and buy the property, right?
Oh, no, I know that. Okay. I was thinking that you had a listing agreement there rather than, because it's hard for me to see in the telephone. Okay, no problem. I got it.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Section D goes into the compensation is payable on close of escrow or if completion of the transaction is prevented by default of the seller on seller's default. Meaning if the seller is making it difficult for you to sell the property, then they may still be required to pay you compensation. Okay. Now, let me put this very, very clear to you in perspective. Okay. Because back then there used to be language that that agents now believe that they should be entitled to compensation. You list the property for $1 million, right? And you get offers at $1 million, but the seller doesn't accept that $1 million offer. And it's a clean offer, right? It's a clean offer. 30-day escrow, they're putting 3% deposit, they're putting 20% down, they're reducing their contingencies, right? It's a clean offer, right? And you present it to the seller, and the seller gets the offer and says, I want to wait. But wait a minute, I just listed the property. I'm at $1 million. You agreed to $1 million, and now you're telling me you don't want this offer? Do we have recourses there? Do we have a way to say, well, no, seller, I'm still entitled to compensation because I brought you a ready, willing, and able buyer? How many believe that because you have an offer at asking, the seller has to sell that property to that specific buyer? How many say yes? How many say no? How many say I don't know? Yeah, like Steve says, Steve was the first one. He already knew the answer to this. Yeah, absolutely. I hate to say it, but the seller does not have to accept the offer. Or even if it's a multiple offer, folks, and you got 3 offers and 2 are at and 1 is above, just because it's the above asking doesn't mean that the seller has to pick the highest offer. They may go with terms. So I want to make sure that you understand that too, folks, because you're thinking, higher price, more commission. I want him or them to offer it to this particular buyer, but the answer is no. Back in the day, there was language that says a ready, willing, and able buyer. Then that was the hook. Then we can have an opportunity to challenge, the seller says, look, we brought you an offer, the buyer's ready, the buyer is willing, and they want this property. So then we could have argued the fact of compensation, but they removed that language. Steve, you remember those times, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish they had that language still. But there was a lot of issues regarding that, so CAR has removed that language from the forms. Okay. Number two goes into, and this kind of ties in to number one. Okay. So this and this. Okay. Principal agrees to pay broker blank, right? Here. Okay. You want to put the amount that you and the seller agree originally on the listing. Okay. So whatever you agree to, that's going to go there. Okay. If it's 3%, if it's 2.75%, if it's 2.5, if it's 2.25, if it's 2%, whatever you have on the listing agreement, ladies and gentlemen, is the amount that you're going to pay just to reinforce the cancellation. Okay, that we'll go ahead and honor the cancellation, but under these stipulations. We'll do it, but under these terms that I am requesting. Because again, remember what I said earlier. There's nothing on the listing agreement that says that the seller changed their mind. Okay. And we can definitely, in a nice way, we can hostage that listing for the remainder of the terms of the listing agreement. Okay. Meaning if it's a 6-month listing and 4 months in, the seller says, I want out. Okay. We can still retain the rights till the end of the listing agreement. Okay. And the way you can approach it, folks, is very simple. I have no problem. Okay. I understand the circumstances around this. So I'll go ahead and draft the cancellation, review it, and if you have any questions, let me know. Now, if they're pressing you hard, okay, to check off a specific section, someone is probably, a little birdie is talking to them, okay? Because a lot of agents, excuse me, a lot of sellers don't know a lot of the language that these agreements have, okay? So if they're saying, I need you to check off number 4, okay? Principal owes no compensation to broker. That is the no-no clause, okay? And again, it's up to you, but that's the no-no clause. That clause means that if we check and we sign this, there's no coming back. No coming back. Even if you provide a list, okay, a list to the seller prior to the expiration or cancellation of the listing, there's no coming back if we sign off. Principal owes no compensation. Because in theory, what we're saying to the seller is, we're done. You can do whatever you want to do with your home. Sell it to your neighbor, sell it to a family member, sell it to someone else. We're done. And there's nothing we can do to collect compensation. Okay. Now, if the sellers are pressing hard on this provision, be mindful. Okay. Someone is telling them to use that section. And guess who that someone is? Yeah, another agent. Yeah, because they want the listing. They don't want the seller to have a double commission paid out. Because if we protect ourselves and they're trying to list it with another agent and they go into contract within our time period, guess what? The seller is on the hook for 2 commissions. Not the other agent, folks. the seller. And then now we can slip in our bill to escrow if we can find the information. And we have a gentleman agreement that says, hey, we're entitled to compensation. Here's the agreement. Now, what's going to happen is it can prolong, it can delay, or the seller may just say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to have to own up to it. Or come to an agreement. And I've seen agreements happen. Or the current agent now has to compromise either a referral or some type of compensation from their commission. But that's where we now have a little bit of skin in the game because we have a legitimate agreement. And again, if the DRE is threatening on us, it's okay. We didn't do anything wrong. We're abiding by the contract. And here's our position, investigator. We haven't done anything wrong. The seller signed a listing agreement with us. Here's the document, here's the date, it's within our time frame. We provided the cancellation, they signed this, and now we're just holding the seller accountable to what they agreed to. Does that make sense? Yeah. I want you to think in how you approach these. Because again, I understand if you're not doing a lot of cancellation, you may accidentally click the wrong one. Or they may try to slip something because you forgot to put something and I'll put a check mark. Principal agrees to pay no compensation, right? Be careful, be careful. So which is the right provision to check? 1A. Which is the wrong one to check? Number 4. Yeah. Number 4. Now, I'm not saying that number 4 is bad because there's circumstances that you may just say, yeah, you know, I'm okay not collecting any compensation. And you have to be okay with that as well. And if you're okay, and I'll ask you, hey, is this the direction you want to go? Yeah. I'm good with that. Okay. I'll back you up. Okay.
Simon, what if accidentally you tick both? What happens in this case?
If you do what again? I'm sorry.
You tick both at the same time.
It's not going to allow you.
Oh, okay.
See right here, it's white. It doesn't allow me. If I uncheck this, it should. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. If I uncheck this, then it'll let me check this. It won't allow me to check number 4 if I have either A, either B, or both check. See how it allows me to check? So when I go up here and check either that, it's blank. I cannot put anything. So if that's the case, if you know, and then all of a sudden you get a cancellation blue pen, then you know it was modified. It was tampered with, right? The seller probably said, hey, you know, check this off, right? You know, we can definitely, and we can have an argument over this because if we need to articulate the reason behind this, folks, right? I can easily say, look, part of the California Association of Realtors ZIP forms does not allow me to check all those and then check number 4. And then I can go through the motions of explaining it to anyone and said, here it is. And then we're going to win the case. Okay, that the seller modified it. No. Why would the agent want to cancel?
Scenario, there is problems and the agent can deal with that person and want to cancel the listing. And you agree as a group to cancel it. So at least the only way you check number 4?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Okay. And the reason I say that is, yeah, you have the authority and the power to say, look, I am done. I can care less. I don't want to get compensation. I'm good. And yeah, you can just say number 4 and you're done. Okay. 1 second. Let me mute some people here. One momento. Mute, mute. Okay, once. All right. Okay. All right, let me again explain it. You can check any of the appropriate boxes, right? If you feel that the seller is doing something that you feel is trying to compromise your position, remember, you put time, effort, and energy in this listing, right? You want to check the appropriate one that you feel that you may still be entitled to compensation if the seller decides, okay? And to me, I don't care, okay? Yes, Steve.
Kind of wondered, or predominantly, when asked, would it be the agent who's canceling, he says, yes, I'm going to seller. I have situations,
Yeah.
in which, yes, absolutely. Years ago, I had a seller, that I viewed as very unscrupulous, okay, and he talked about concealment of conditions of the home. And just the way that I communicated, and just really that my flaw, okay, it just felt dirty, okay.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm thinking, holy moly, if I were to be involved now in a transaction with this guy, fraud and concealment and the whole bit, I said, this screams future potential lawsuits coming down the road. And personality wise, it was a conflict. And so it's like, sometimes it's as a business decision, it's like, I'm choosing to step away. I don't care who the house was shown to. I don't want any part of it in any way, shape, or form. I want to clean my hands, wash my hands. It's generally what.
Right. Yeah, and they're going to make it very difficult. When someone already has a bad taste, either the agent to the seller or the seller to us, it's going to be very difficult. There's still avenues in how you can protect yourself, but you may just decide, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it to, go after, just let it be. For every bad, something good comes out of it, in my opinion. Let it go. Okay. But I know sometimes, special during desperate needs, something happened during the process, right? That altered the decision of the seller to cancel, right? And it can be many reasons. Maybe they're talking to someone else and they don't want to pay, 2, 3, 4, 5% commission. And in those cases, then why even get into a listing agreement with you, right? I'm just trying to protect you. Christine had a question, and I'll just kind of rephrase on what Steve was saying. What Steve was just saying is basically his approach is sometimes it's not even worth it. It's just best to let it go and just say, hey, principal just doesn't owe me any compensation. That was really the his thoughts around it.
Oh,
So.
thanks, Simon. My stuff is, I know you went to 4, but did you talk about 3? Because I didn't hear you.
No, not yet, not
Okay,
yet.
because I have some good questions for that one when you get there. Thank you.
Yeah. I kind of jumped on that one, but no, I haven't touched on number 3. So now let's go ahead and go to number 3. Okay, so once we determine what we're planning to do, okay, let's just say if you do check number 3. Number 3 says principal agrees to pay broker. It doesn't say agent. It says broker for out-of-pocket expenses, costs incurred, and service rendered in marketing the property prior to cancellation of the listing. Okay. Principal agrees to pay dollar amount for out-of-pocket expenses, costs, and incurred. So here it is. And then I'll let you speak on this if you have a scenario for us. But let's just say that both are in agreement. You and the seller are in agreement. Look, I'll release the listing under these terms. Just pay me for my out-of-pocket expenses. Okay? Now it has to be reasonable. Okay? What is reasonable? Because as a consumer, right? I'm a seller. I want to know what you are charging me. And if you put $10,000 there, I'm going to question it. What did you do in marketing expenses that raise that bill to 10,000? It has to be reasonable. Okay. Now, I'll have arguments on this, and we could spend hours on this debate. Wow, time, effort, driving all the way to the Inland Empire, right? Spent time talking to the sellers for 10 hours. Feel, right? My time. Or I miss another opportunity because of this circumstances, right? And they want to use that as part of the damage. It's not a good reason. It says out of pocket. What did you put into marketing this home? Okay. It's pretty self-explanatory in my opinion. Steve, what do you think? Is it pretty
self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Years ago, when we had newspapers, piece of paper that used to come out with ads, stories. We used to spend lots of money on classified ads advertising the home for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you send out postcards and mailings all, we'll talk about new listing or upcoming listing.
Yeah.
Typically, it's not. There actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, chances are, the reality be, when you talk about cancellation of listings, it is very rare that you get a cancellation of a listing, especially if once you're in escrow. Okay. Because the seller cannot, seller not cancel a listing unless there's a provision in the purchase agreement that allows the seller to cancel. Seller also can cancel a sale. So it is very rare. And so typically when a cancellation of listing conversation even happens is before the property is in escrow. When that conversation does occur, this of that house has not received any offers. Why has the house not received any offers?
Yeah.
Typically, one reason and one reason only. The price is too, which then means it's your job as the listing agent, okay, to have dialogue with the seller, of having pricing conversations. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
And so it is very, very, very rare, especially if you're doing your job as listing agent, okay, properly advising them on pricing, okay, regardless of condition. The pricing is often, location and condition of home. And so, at that point, although this is a good conversation, hopefully it'll be very, very something in your career that you're going to do. I think in my 40-year career, one hand dealt with cancellation of listings.
Yeah.
And typically when they have been, typically because either change of mind, health issues, and I am more than happy to be able to cancel the listing. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Right.
For the purpose of a future business one to come when they are ready and or.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Yeah. 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 Yes.
So just to keep it simple, I guess, for us, we pretty much keep like, if you can show a receipt for it type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Professional photography, right? Flyers, right? Maybe some staging, some of that stuff. Maybe you have a runner that's showing property, right? And you're not able to do inspections, right? And you pay someone to go out All of those are part of the out-of-pocket expenses, right? You might be able to get away with certain things, but I mean, is this reasonable if I was to put this? Right? Yeah, you owe me, I don't even know how much is that, 100 billion?
The broker, not the agent.
The broker means the company. That when they say broker, it doesn't mean Simon as the broker or Steve as the broker. It means the brokerage. Yeah, the brokerage. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So you all with on this? I know that Christine. Yes, please.
Hi, Simon. Thank you. I can't, for whatever way the mic is there, I can't hear the person speaking or who it was, but he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but I can't hear anything. What I wanted to ask about, and this might be a different conversation, but coming on, I've never had all my years of doing it. I've never had to fill out this form, so I'm happy about that. But for a principal agrees to pay for out of pocket, I usually write a sum on a listing agreement as part of the contract, that if you're canceling this listing, I mean, we could talk about that, how you feel about that, as my broker now. But I usually write something in there.
I'm your broker now.
Yes, you are. So,
I
but
signed the paperwork. I was the
anyway.
one that told Hallie, "Hey."
So I know. So
Right.
anyway, but like having, the conversation ahead of time, so that if it did come to this, it's not in question, like, what am I putting there? So of course it's out of pocket and everything, but I come up with a fee, and 3,000, 5,000, it depends on what it is. And I've never had somebody turn me down for it. I've never had anybody cancel me though either. So then I had to go after them. So I'm just wondering what your thought is about that. Are you pro putting it on a listing agreement? Am I opening a can of worms? Okay.
The more walls that you can protect yourself from a seller disputing this after the fact, it's going to be even easier, because in the forefront of the listing presentation and having the seller sign this, you can put there, language that says that at any time, at no fault to the agent, if you decide to cancel the listing, and it's only if you cancel, not if it expires, okay? If it expires, you're out of luck, folks, okay? You gave it your best, and unfortunately, either something happened, right? You didn't price it correctly. Who knows what the situation is, but only if the seller cancels, then you have. But yes, I would definitely recommend that if you do put it up in the front, there's no question that when you do have to cancel, you're going to put what's already reinforced by the listing agreement. Does that make sense?
And to me, I put it as a flat fee. So I'm not showing, hey, here's what I spent on this and I spent on that. Of course, I have that for my, my business, but for them, I say it as a flat fee. That's
Yeah.
time, energy, whatever I'm doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. The other question is, because the out of pocket, right? Out of pocket typically is what the agent, it's not what the brokerage, right? It's what you put into it. The question here is, does the brokerage get a percentage of that? I want to say, yeah, but we don't, okay? It's not our money, it's your money. You invested on that listing, so therefore that money is all yours. So if it was 1,000, 1,500, 2,500, 3,000, whatever that amount is that's reasonable, then yes, all that money goes back to you, as long as the seller is willing to do so. Okay. Now the seller may argue the fact and say, I disagree. Now it's tennis, back and forth, back and forth. Until you both come to an agreement, and that agreement may be more or less. And I've seen situations where it started at this and it ended up going more, because the seller was in a position that they were back and forth, and I've seen it go up more, and the seller agreed to. But the intention was, because immediately once that was done, they put the property on the market with another agent. And it's still sitting on the market. It's not greener on the other side, folks, just because someone puts a little bit, I can sell your property. Remember, numbers do not lie. And if you do your homework and check the stats in the MLS, you're going to see that, sellers don't know. We should know, right? Properties sell when it's priced correctly. Who's going to want to pay for a property that's worth more, that is costs more than what the area is going for, right? That's foolish. But sellers live in this fantasy world that they think that their home is worth $10 million. I'm just saying. So, and then lastly, number 5 is any other additional terms that you want to add to it. You have that specific area to do so. I haven't seen really much. I think the form itself is pretty self-explanatory. I haven't really seen anything in here otherwise, you can also, as part of out of pocket, maybe TC fees, right? Most TCs don't charge if the deal falls apart. Most don't, but let's just say they do, and now you're paying the TC for a cancellation, not all do. I know Chris O doesn't charge, but if the deal does fall apart, they may say, look, I know it's 400, but I'm going to charge you $100 because I did, the TC also put time, effort into it as well. So you might add that as other terms, or you can say, please see the list, and then maybe you can itemize all of the expenses that you incur. Other than they provided herein, broker and principal mutually release each other from all obligations under the listing and from all claims, actions, demands that each may have against the other by reason of the listing. However, broker and principal agree that the dispute resolution and attorney fee provision of the listing agreement shall control any dispute arising out of the cancellation. So meaning back to the listing agreement, remember, there's provision in there about mediation, arbitration, and if they sign it, that still supersedes this too. If there is a disagreement, we can still escalate it to potential mediation or arbitration if need be, okay? And then sellers would sign, make sure that the seller signed before you send it to me. Don't have me sign first. Have the principal sign and then send it for me, because then when I sign off, then I can cancel it on the MLS, okay? That's questions, concerns. All right, team. Well, that concludes today's class. Yes, sir.
Just a reminder, every evening, contract Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, you said, yeah. Things that we kind of